Look closely at the vehicle on your screen. At first glance, it looks familiar. It has windows and it has hatches. But look closer, and you'll notice the most chilling detail. The seats are empty. There is no crew inside. Why? Because for the first time in the history of armored warfare, the U.S. Army is preparing to deploy a frontline combat machine where human survival is not part of the design equation. This isn't a science fiction movie. This is the immediate future of ground combat. For decades, American doctrine has been about protecting the soldier inside the machine at all costs. We build massive, 70-ton Abrams tanks and heavily armored Bradleys because flesh and blood are fragile. But what happens when you remove the flesh and blood? What happens when the machine doesn't feel fear, doesn't get tired, and doesn't need to come home? Welcome back to Ground Force Tech. Today we are diving deep into the program that is radically changing how America prepares for near-peer conflict. We are looking at the Robotic Combat Vehicle program, and specifically the machines like the Oshkosh X-MAV that are competing to become the Army's first true killing machines with no human on board. Forget everything you know about tank crew coordination. The future is autonomous, it is heavily armed, and it is terrifying for anyone on the receiving end. Let's break down why this platform is an absolute game changer. To understand why the Army is rushing these robot tanks to the field, we have to look at the brutal reality of modern warfare. The battlefields we see today in Eastern Europe have taught Pentagon planners a very harsh lesson. If you can be seen, you can be hit. And if you can be hit, you can be killed. The proliferation of cheap suicide drones, advanced anti-tank guided missiles, ATGMs, and persistent satellite surveillance means there is nowhere to hide. In this environment, sending a light reconnaissance vehicle packed with 4 American soldiers to scout the front line isn't just risky, it's practically a suicide mission. The Army has a massive problem. They need eyes on the enemy. They need to probe Russian or Chinese defensive lines to find weak spots. They need firepower up front to suppress the enemy before the main battle tanks arrive. But they cannot afford the casualty counts that come with doing that job the old-fashioned way. So, the requirement changed. The Army demanded a platform that could take the first hit. A vehicle that could act as the tip of the spear, aggressive enough to force the enemy to reveal their positions, but expendable enough that if it gets blown up, we don't lose a single soldier. They needed a hunter that didn't care if it died. They needed the Robotic Combat Vehicle based on platforms like the X-MAV. So, what exactly is this machine? The vehicle you're looking at is part of the Army's RCV-Light, Robotic Combat Vehicle Light competition. And don't let the word light fool you. It just means it's light enough to be transported easily by helicopter. In terms of capability, it is a heavyweight hitter. The Oshkosh X-MAV, a leading contender developed with Pratt Miller Defense, is essentially a ruggedized, highly mobile chassis designed around one concept: modular lethality. Because engineers didn't have to waste weight on life support systems, seats, air conditioning, or heavy crew armor, they could dedicate every single pound to 3 things: speed, sensors, and weapons. Let's talk firepower. This isn't just a camera on wheels. The Army's vision for these robots includes mounting serious hardware. We are talking about common remotely operated weapon stations, SKIRAUs, fitted with 50 caliber machine guns or 30mm autocannons powerful enough to shred enemy light armor. But it gets deadlier. These platforms are being tested to carry Javelin anti-tank missiles. Imagine a scenario where a squad of these small, hard-to-detect robots creeps up on an enemy tank column. They unleash a volley of top-attack javelins and retreat before the enemy even knows what hit them. There are even concepts for these robots to act as launch pads for their own swarms of loitering munitions or suicide drones. It is a Russian nesting doll of firepower, all operated without a single American boot on the ground in the kill zone. But mounting a big gun on a chassis is the easy part. The aspect of this program that is truly revolutionary, and perhaps the most controversial, is how it thinks. Many people assume these are just giant RC cars like the ones you played with as a kid, with a soldier holding a controller nearby. That is not the case. The latency or signal lag in a real electronic warfare environment would make direct remote control impossible during intense combat. These machines rely on advanced artificial intelligence and autonomy packages. They use a suite of LiDAR, thermal cameras, and optical sensors to see the world in 3D in real time. They can navigate complex terrain, avoid obstacles, and follow a lead vehicle completely on their own. The Army calls this having a human on the loop rather than in the loop. Here is the operational concept. One human operator sitting in the back of a heavily armored Bradley fighting vehicle miles away could manage a wolf pack of 4 or 5 of these robot tanks. The human tells them, "Go to Sector Alpha and set up an ambush." The robots figure out the best path. The robots figure out how to hide. The robots use their AI sensors to scan for enemy heat signatures. When the robot detects a target, it alerts the human operator, and this is crucial. Current US policy dictates that a human must make the final decision to pull the trigger. The robot identifies the threat, the human authorizes the kill. However, as this technology advances, and as things move faster on the battlefield, the question everyone is asking is, how long until the machine is faster than the human? The deployment of vehicles like the X-MAV signifies the biggest shift in ground combat since the invention of the tank itself in World War I. We are moving from an era of manned systems assisted by technology to an era of unmanned systems supervised by humans. These killing machines offer an undeniable tactical advantage. They provide overwhelming firepower and situational awareness without risking American lives. In a conflict against a major power like China or Russia, they will likely be the difference between victory and defeat. They are the ultimate force multiplier, but they also open a Pandora's box of ethical questions that we are just beginning to grapple with. When these machines become fully mature, and their AI target recognition becomes faster than a human operator can blink, will we trust them to take the shot on their own? If an enemy uses fully autonomous killer robots that don't wait for human permission, will the US be forced to take the human out of the loop just to survive? This technology is arriving whether we are ready for the implications or not. I want to know what you think down in the comments below. This is always a hot debate. Do you believe these robot tanks will save soldiers' lives, or are we crossing a dangerous line by automating the kill chain in warfare? Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the future of Army tech, destroy that like button and subscribe to Ground Force Tech so you don't miss our next breakdown on the new Abrams M1E3. Stay frosty.